I am very excited to announce to you that Audi is in fact bringing back the Audi RS6 sedan. Yes, we've had it in the wagon form since the inception of the RS6 back in 2002, I do believe. And I remember being at this, in Sweden, we had this sort of work experience time, a couple of months, I do believe. And I decided, of course, to go to the Audi dealership to do my work experience there. And I was maybe 15 or something like that, 16, or I can't really remember. And I remember when the 450 horsepower first generation RS6 came out, they got it into the showroom, and I was blown away by the wide fenders, the massive wheels that felt like it's a concept car. You got two set of wheels for the first generation RS6. Both of them looks great. However, I mean, the 5-spoke wheels that you had back in the day on the RS6, the big 5-spoke wheels, just great looking wheels. And it looks like we have similar wheels on the new one here as well. They do not need to switch out the wheels from the prototype that we have going on here. Just keep these and put this on the production vehicle. Or if you really want to have different wheels, get the Avis wheels. So of course we have to we need to check this out. We have some renderings from Kolesa. I'm gonna link his Instagram. He always does great renderings very quickly from when the spy photos come out. Really appreciate that. His Instagram is down below. He does renderings for all types of vehicles. We're gonna have a look at the front end, the rear end, and also of course the side view of the RS6 sedan in through the generations. I mean, just look at this. This generation was beautiful as well, but you can't beat the original one, in my opinion. It's just a beautiful looking car. Before I do that, let's have a look at what we know so far from Car Scoops. Article link down below as well. Audi, after 15 years, Audi finally makes an RS6 sedan again. It's kind of strange that they haven't focused on the sedan. Instead, they focused on the Avant or the wagon version, while BMW and Mercedes, they have the E63, they have the M5. There are in its original form a sedan, but Audi just dropped the RS6 sedan. It never really made sense to me. I do like the wagon, of course. So the RS6 Avant is gaining a sedan sibling to take on BMW's heavyweight M5 across every front. So the last two generations skipped the sedan body style entirely. So this new one could feature a hybrid setup producing over 700 horsepower. There were talks that they might put in a V6, maybe bi-turbo hybrid setup, but now there are rumors that they're actually going to slap a V8 in this, and I really hope they do, because that is what we want to see in an RS6. The first since the C7 generation bowed out of production in 2011. A fair shot at taking on BMW's M5 and the next AMG E63, which hopefully, I'm not sure, I haven't read, maybe you know, the next E63, the current one has the 6-cylinder, and I always thought that, the AMG GT has the V8. They need to put that powertrain in the E63. It just makes sense, and it sounds so good. The revisions include a more dynamic front bumper, of course, broader fenders, yes, and a deeper rear apron housing the trademark dual oval exhaust outlets. And I love this about with Mercedes, BMW, and Audi, with their M, AMG, and the RS models, they have very specific style for their exhaust pipes. BMW have the quad exhaust pipes, E46, of course, E39 M5, so on. Then we have the Mercedes with the squared off E63, and Audi has always had just two oval big bazooka pipes in the back. And I love that they actually have kept those distinct features for each performance model ever since the beginning of the AMGs and the AMs and the RS. Now, looking at the car itself here, these wheels, by the way, look fantastic. No need to switch those out. The proportions look great as well. I can tell you already it's not going to be as good looking as the previous generations, because the front end looks too messy to me still, but it's always great to see these cars coming back. This high performance, specifically in a sedan form. I'm sick of this RS Q7, or Q8s with the big sedans. It just does not make sense. Having it a sedan and Avant proportions so much better. So the company has invested in RS-specific rear doors. This is huge as well. And it's a big deal. We talked about this here several times on the channel, how BMW, in both the M5 and the M3, they take the standard rear door of the 5 Series and the 3 Series and slap that on the M3 and the M5, and that does not work because you don't have the smooth transition going in from the door into the wide fender, and it looks like a sharp cut there. BMW says that that is intentional, and they actually think it looks better. That is obviously a lie because it does not look better. It's just a way of saving money, not having to manufacture a completely different rear door for the M models. Audi, however, they can't do it because they have this squared off wider fender. So it would look extremely weird if we did not have a specific door for the RS models. Great to see that they're doing that, have a continuity around the entire design. The prototype rides on 5-spoke alloy wheels, so looking fantastic. It was believed that the new generation would swap the mild hybrid V8 of its predecessor for a plug-in hybrid V6. No, we're not doing that. However, there also have been reports about a potential return of a twin-turbo V8. It's an RS6. You want to have a twin-turbo V8 in this vehicle, obviously. So RS6 e-tron prototypes in Sportback have been seen tested. The latest rumors, though, suggest that the zero-emission model has been cancelled. And that gives me more hope that the internal combustion engine RS6 is actually going to have the twin-turbo V8, because I feel like car companies, specifically when it comes to performance models right now, they're ditching the EV sports car, because they know that people don't really want to buy those, and instead switching over back to what used to work 5 years ago, and that means buy turbo V8s and so on. And that is the reason why I think we're going to have a V8 in this, because the RS e-tron is apparently ditched. No confirmation date yet, nor any word on whether Audi will bring the RS6 sedan to North America. I mean, of course they will. Of course they're going to do that. It would be extremely surprising if this does not come here, because we did get the RS6 Avant, and this is a sedan, and sedans sell more than wagons here in the States, so it would make total sense to bring this over here. Now, looking at the rear end, we have these dual beautiful exhaust pipes in the correct position, sitting pretty tight to each other, and that is typical Audi RS design. It just looks so good. It looks planted, looks squared off. We have beefy fenders here as well. Let's jump into Photoshop and continue to talk about this right here where it makes more sense. So starting with the front end design, with the rendering from Kolesa.ru, again, linked down below. Beautiful looking rendering. We have seen this front end before from Audis, and I do think this is pretty close to what we're going to see in the production version. Does it look as good as the previous generation Audis RS versions? No, it is nowhere near as good looking as the old RS6 sedans and the Avants when we're talking about the front end. Because I think this black graphic that goes on here, specifically when we have a white vehicle, is just too much going on. I want to have a separation here with some sort of bumper between these two features, between the top half. Maybe not in the middle, because we've always seen these big single frame grills from Audi, and it's kind of fine to have that. But I just think it's too much going on with the intake here. At least we have the headlight unit sitting in the correct position. Having a bumper headlight on an RS6 would just not work at all, in my opinion. So I'm glad to see that. And then we have these pretty static indents up top on the hood, what we've seen on Audis recently as well. It's becoming a little bit more static. That has been the vibe that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years from a lot of manufacturers to get into this more product design feel. Now, looking at the spy photos and comparing these two, the reason why I think this is very close to what the rendering is close to what the production is going to look like is if we look at the front end, we have the same angle here like we have here. We have a bit of an angle upwards in this area, same angle that we have here, and then of course everything else is covered up by a lot of camo, but we can see the outline of the single frame grille going like this, looking very much like we have in the rendering. And then the headlights are obviously going to have the same sort of headlights that we have in a regular Audi A6, so that is not going to change, and that is the reason why I think it's very close to production. Just please, Audi, keep these beautiful looking wheels that you have going on here for the production version. Now, looking at the rear end, by far my favorite view for this vehicle. I'm not sure why I put the spy photo up top and the rendering down low in this when we had the opposite on the front view. But looking at the rear end, we have a light bar. Look at this. Light bars coming back in Audis now as well. I want to see, look at the lower diffuser and the outline for it. We can sort of see an outline here for a diffuser, and it looks like we do have a nice bumper separation. Maybe not the typical German waterfall design going in from the lower section of the rear graphics into the bumper like this all the way down. Instead, it stops right here and cuts into this line in the trunk space. But I don't care. It's still a beautiful, beautiful looking rear end. We have a small little lip spoiler up top, similar to what we had back in the day on the M5 E39. And we have the taillights graphics being separated right here. So regular taillights up top, light bar. You can see the light bar here. It is actually visible underneath, in between this camo. And then we have this interesting piece of trim piece in this area. But overall, the rear end still looks pretty classic Audi to me, even though we do have light bars and stuff going on here. I think a lot of it has to do with the oval pipes that we have in the lower section. These are essential for RS models. You need to have these lower pipes, these elliptical pipes for any sort of RS models. It just makes sense. And again, this diffuser looks very much like we have in the camo, with a very subtle integration of the diffuser, and that is what I want to see, of course, instead of having this weirdness that we see for other companies. Now, going through the generations of this RS6, you know, once you reach my age and you grew up having a, strong interest in cars, some cars become almost magical when you look at them and when you think back at what they used to be and the feeling you used to get when you saw them for the first time. And that goes for me and Audi, the B5, I think it's the B5 RS4, the first generation RS4, and the first generation RS6. I just told you about the first time I saw this at the dealership in Bromma in Sweden, outside of Stockholm. It was in silver. It did have these wheels, but as I said, you can get this with these wheels, or you have the 5-spoke wheels that were wheels that I had never seen on a vehicle of that time before. They filled out the wheelhouses in a way that made it look like a proper concept car just came out on the showroom floor. And the proportions here, beautiful looking proportions, clean Audi design. And the greenhouse, typical Audi too, meaning that we have this roofline dipping down and don't have any sort of Hofmeister kink or anything like that. Instead, it's just almost symmetrical, the front end and the rear end of the greenhouse. That is what we want in the Audi. You have the A-pillar going down. Does it reach the center point of the front axle? Almost. It sits a little bit higher than that. But the front end of this almost had this, of the RS6 in general, had this almost sad look to it. It looked like it didn't know what to do with all this 450 horsepower that he had under the hood. It looked confused. And that brought some more, it was a big part of the personality of the first generation RS6 and why I loved it. And then you have these wider fenders that are much wider than you had on the standard A6. So they really took this RS6 back in the day and really made it feel like a special car that was separated from the rest of the A6 lineup. Of course, we have the silver side mirrors, something that I wish Audi brought back for their current RS models and also the S models. They have it in some, but I do think it's an option. Beautiful proportions here, and of course we have this Audi TT design with the headlights going into the shoulder line and then shoulder line going into the taillights, having this small little radius there, looking beautiful. Now looking at the next generation, this is also very cool. It's not as cool as the first generation because I don't have the same, emotional connection to this vehicle, but it's still a beautiful looking car. However, these wheels have never been my, a favorite of mine when it comes to the styling of these wheels. I would just take the old RS6 5-spoke wheels and slap them on here, but we still have the typical Audi greenhouse, meaning that we have one single curvature for the top piece. Draw a center point here, almost symmetrical front and rear, exactly like we had in the first generation as well. Super crisp shoulder line going into the corner of the taillight and the headlight, and this small subtle ducktail, it sticks down just like that into the rear and creating this nail spoiler that Walter de Silva called it the boss of Audi design of the time. Now going into the front end, very smooth and rounded, looking beautiful. And we have of course, still the silver side mirrors right there. Now looking at the new one from side view, this is what we get. We don't have any sort of renderings from the side view or anything like that, but this is just to look at the proportions. And to me, the proportions look great to me. I think we're still going to have the one single curvature dipping down like this, and we have this outtake or air outtake right here in the front fender, and it might even get these boxy wide body fenders that we had in this generation into the new one right here. And the wheels, as I said, do not switch those out. The only thing that I don't like about this new A6 is going to be the front end graphics. I've never been a fan of what Audi is currently doing with their front end. I think it looks too messy. It looks too tight. Like everything, like the face is like making a face all the time. It doesn't look relaxed and beautiful. I mean, compare that to what we had in the first generation. This was extremely elegant, this first generation Audi A6. So very exciting to see this, and I cannot wait to see what this actually looks like, and if we're gonna get the V8. I really hope we are.